Hey, what's going on everyone? This is Mike Kollin at MikeKollin.com. Okay, so today's video is going to be about the way that I look at religion. It's a very open way of looking at, it's not just religion, but it's how I look at everything and how I combine things. So in a video that just came out 2 nights ago, it was on the 20th, it's called Complete Tower Moment, Was It a Blessing? Destroying Narcissist. Okay? In that video and in the past, I've explained how there's more than 2 ways, but we're going out of the old way of perceiving life, perceiving the world, and the old way is the either or versus, or either or right or wrong way of thinking. Okay, it's a very limited mindset. Oh, and by the way, that movie was a movie that I just made that came out, right now it's last night, it came out 8 hours ago, but by the time you get this, it'll be probably 2 or 3 days from now. So that came out on the 20th. Again, that's Complete Tower Moment, Was It a Blessing? Destroying Narcissists. So it's a video that I made. So essentially what we're coming out of, the shift that's happening around the planet right now is people are essentially being divided between either or thinking, which is literally like looking under a microscope, very narrow, very small, like microscopic in everything. It's like, it's the way, okay, it's called the science. Oh man, we learned this in 8th and 9th grade science. It's called the scientific method, I believe is what it's called. And essentially what you're doing is you're testing A against B, okay? So you have something you're going to test against all these other things. But you pick A, which is one thing, and then you pick something else and you test it. So it's A and B testing. So it's very limited, okay? So you literally throw out 99.99% of everything else and you only test A and B. Now, B can become another thing. Well, so let's say you test vitamin C, and then what happens when you combine it with vitamin A or vitamin E or vitamin B12 or whatever. But you only test one thing at a time with vitamin C. You don't test 3 or 4 things at the same time against vitamin C. So what happened to society, we got stuck in this A or B way of thinking. Our test, when you have these right or wrong tests, everything becomes A or B testing. We are now stuck in this way of looking at the world of A or B, either or. Either you're right or I'm right. We both can't be right. Whereas the shift that's happening is people are starting to wake up. Well, what does that neurologically, physically mean? It means we are now opening up to our right brain, whereas before you were either left or right. You can't be both. And this is what's happening. We are shifting into this higher level of processing. We are now becoming inclusive. Now here's the funny thing. When you hear like people talking about politics or race or political things at work and being inclusive, they generally meant to be uninclusive, meaning like you are suddenly not part of the group because you have the wrong skin color or you're the wrong age. And so they used the word inclusive, but it wasn't inclusive at all. They were literally saying, okay, we're including these people in our group, but you are not one of us. You look different, or you are born with a different skin color, and therefore we're going to push you out of the box. So that mentality of A or B causes that way of thinking. And people who think in terms, they don't just think, they perceive and they filter everything through A or B, right or wrong, you or me, rich or poor, good or bad. Life is not that black or white. That is just a false reality that isn't even close to reality. It is a minutia, literally like looking under a microscope at a frickin' atom and an electron, etc. It is so minutia that it's not even encompassing 1% of reality. So the shift is we are opening a wide open walkway, a wide open doorway to the right brain. So now we're left and right, and both of those hemispheres are connected to the lower reptilian brain, okay? So for women, they have a connection from the right brain to the lower, and men have a connection from the left brain to the lower. So now what's going to happen is when we open up to both left and right, all of a sudden, boom, we are connected to all 3 of the hemispheres, all 3 of the brains. So we are literally shifting from the limited mindset to the unlimited mindset, which is now all inclusive. Now, I'm not just talking about people, race, this. I'm just talking about perceiving thoughts, perceiving the Bible, perceiving religion, perceiving psychology, perceiving electronics, perceiving mechanics, machines. All of a sudden, everything is going to be shifted into a new way of understanding how things work together. So the old way of thinking or perceiving was seeing one piece of the puzzle at a time, and then separating and pushing apart the other pieces. And that is how we've been living life. Like, well, this is because it's the processor. We were using the left brain's processor, and it is literally, its mastery is being like a microscope. It looks at the finite details, and in order to do that, you have to push out all the other details, meaning separate everything. So it causes everything to become separated. Now, when you open up to the right brain, you do have the details. So you still, it's not either now we're only going to be right. No, I didn't say that. We're going to be both. And that is a right brain word, both, and a both, plus and more. Yes, yes, yes. That is a mantra that I've given to you over the years many, many times. Write it down. And both, plus and more. Yes, yes, yes. And a both, plus and more. Yes, yes, yes. What this does, if you do this for 5, 7, 10, 15, 20 minutes, it opens you up to the right brain, and now you are thinking in terms of plus. The left brain thinks in terms of the minus sign. 1 minus 1 equals 0. And this is why whenever you talk to a narcissist or a person that thinks in terms of negation, they minus everything you say. So the word but is one of their favorite words because it uses the word but is a minus sign. So whatever you say, and they'll start out, so you say, well, I really love orange sherbet ice cream because blah, blah, blah. They go, well, yeah, but, and they literally just negated, minused, and took away everything you just said. And that doesn't make anybody feel good. And then they say, well, this is better, and here's why. So it's the greater than, less than symbol. So they're diminishing everything that you just said or did. Who does that sound like? Narcissist. So the majority of the world is going through this unconscious shift into plus, and in both, plus and more. We're now adding things together, which feels good. So let's see, when you walk up to someone and you take away by using the word no, not, can't, won't, shan't, but, those are all minus signs. You literally took away, minused whatever they did or whatever accomplishment they did or what they just said. Nobody likes that. You're taking away from. It's like stealing, and it's putting them down. So the way you fix that is literally replace the word and, which is a plus sign, in place of the word but. So if you're one of those people that walk around and go, but, and you'll even do it in your own sense. So, I like orange sherbet, but I also like freaking whatever. So instead of saying but, because you literally, see, these people walk around minusing themselves and taking away from themselves, which makes them miserable, and it's conflicting, it's confusing. Now, if you want to add clarity, all you do, instead of saying I like orange sherbet, but I also like raspberry, whatever, say, and I like orange sherbet and I like raspberry chocolate. Do you notice how much easier the energy just flows with that versus but? Now, it's like when you use the word but, no, not, can't, it's like you're putting on the brakes and you're stopping and you're stopping and you're stopping. Have you ever had a conversation with someone and it just feels like they're constantly interrupting and constantly stopping you, and you're it's like, and it's causing you like you can't freaking breathe, like you're hyperventilating. It's because they're slamming on the, it's like slam on the brake, slam on the brake, slam, and it's like, Jesus freaking stop. Meaning stop slamming on the brakes, just let off the brakes and let's flow in conversation. So the people that flow in conversations, they use the word and, both, plus, more, can, of course, I am, I can, I will, absolutely, sure, you can, I can, we can, together. Now look at the word together. Together. It's an addition word. 2 plus gather equals 1 equals together. Write all those words down and start peppering them in your sentence. Like write down and both, plus and more. you and I, we can, you can, I can, let's do this. This is positive languaging, okay? Of course, sure, certainly, absolutely, I'll get right on it, I will do it. Like, this is just, see, when I listen to someone, if I were to hire someone, they're like, well, yeah, but, and, not, or not, can't, won't, shan't, boom. Well, that doesn't mean this. Like, literally, it's like, well, why are you negating everything? Why can't you just say, I like oranges? Well, I like oranges, but you just negated yourself. So one of my favorite ways to open up to the right brain is use that mantra, and in both, plus and more, yes, yes, yes. And in both, plus and more, yes, yes, yes. I am, I can, I will. Of course. And I'll even say I am, I can, I will. I am, I can, I will. I am, I can, I will. And I'll say those two mantras back to back or together over and over and over. And then I'll say, sure, certainly, like I am right now, all by myself. Sure, certainly, of course, let's do this. Even the humming or whatever you call it, that's an addition phrase or an addition sound. You know, I can, we can, you can, let's do this. I will say stuff like that for about 5 to 10 minutes until it's opened me up. So once you open to the right brain, it unconsciously uses those phrases and words. So when I get into conversations with people, I will start using and, both, plus, yes, of course, yeah. And you'll notice that their eyes open up, their face relaxes instead of being no, not, can't, because they're used to talking. Most people talk that way. No, not, well, I don't believe in, I don't think. All it is a really bad habit of being in the negation way of thinking. It's not even your actual thoughts. It's literally what we call a program. These are called meta programs. Okay, I think there's 12 of them or more. It's literally a program when you're not even thinking. You're just you're an automaton. Robotron, automaton, answer, respond, answer. There's no actual real processing going on. And it ruins the energy and it destroys conversations and relationships. And you are so much more awesome than that. Do you know what else it also does? It relaxes your lungs, it relaxes your muscles, your face, your stomach. So now, without even realizing it, you're breathing a lot deeper and you're allowing the words to fall out, which allows you to breathe more naturally, and suddenly you start to feel more comfortable. And so does the person or people that you're interacting with. So all of a sudden, people actually want to speak with you. They want to hang out. Hey, what? And they might not even know why. It's just, I don't know, I just feel good around this person. And they may not even say that. They're just like, hey, let's go hang out with so-and-so. Because it feels good. It's comfortable. It's like relaxing. It's open. Another gift is it allows you to become unstuck. So if you're stuck, it's because you're using phrases like no, can't, won't, shan't, not, but. That literally is putting on the brakes to your neurology, and it narrows your way of thinking. So you can only say, well, this is because you feel stuck because you're looking under a microscope. That's not reality. Take off the brake and all of a sudden the car starts to go. So at a very young age, and I believe it was because of sports, or it's possible I was just born this way. I'm not really sure why. But I always looked at life in the sense of I wanted to learn. I wanted to understand where you're coming from. I wanted to understand, well, why do you believe that? Well, why do you use this technique instead of that technique? Like, what's behind that? Is it just because someone taught it to you, you never thought about it, or does it work better? And if so, like, what causes it to work better? So I want to understand. I want to understand you. Like, well, what's going on? Like, why do you say that? What's going on? What do you see that I don't see? And that's what I'm talking about, because that's how you start to pick up on other people's skills and learn what they're doing on an unconscious level. You just ask, so like, what's your purpose for doing that? Like, what's going on? Like, well, the way I picture it is I picture it like this. And I'm like, oh man, I don't picture it like that. I picture it the opposite of that. They're like, yeah, I used to do that too, until I ran into this coach that taught me, no, like, picture it like this and then that. Like, I can think of a thing in the Army that I used to do unconsciously that I learned when I was shooting BB guns when I was a little kid at targets. And when I went into the Army, they're like, where did you learn how to shoot? Like, you've been shooting? I'm like, no, I shot BBs guns every summer for about 2 or 3 summers when I was a kid at the park. And then there's like, well, where did you learn how to shoot though? I'm like, that's the only shooting I've done. They're like, how old were you? I'm like, I think it was like 4th, 5th, 6th grade. They're like, but who shot you how to shoot guns? I'm like, that was it. I didn't realize it till many years later, because they were thinking I had grew up shooting like handguns and rifles, and I didn't. And they're like, well, where'd you learn how to shoot so good? And again, it was the BB guns, but they didn't believe me. So when I was listening to Tony Robbins and studying under him, and then I got into NLP, I learned about what we call submodality shifts. So what I was doing unconsciously that I learned when I was a kid was I was bringing the target, again, this is imagination, I was bringing it closer to me and making it bigger. And so here it is, imagining closer, bigger, and I was shooting right at the center, and boom, I would hit the target. One of the things that made Tony Robbins famous was he went into the army and he said, hey, I've got this sharpshooter and we're going to teach you guys, what he's doing. Because in NLP we have something called modeling. It's an unconscious process to model people's unconscious patterns that they're not even aware that they're doing. That's making them the expert in the field. So essentially what that guy was doing was he was bringing it closer and making it bigger and wider, and that's what made it easy to shoot. And so now they teach this to people in the military, and this is how they've improved the shooting percentage to hit the target. So here's my point. I want to learn from other people. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to agree with them and blindly accept it. It's like, no, like, well, why do you believe this? Why do you, So when I look at, okay, God, how do I say this? Hold on. All right, I'm going to cut right to the point. Here's what I'm doing. I'm using the and both way of thinking versus either or. Well, either I'm right or you're right. We can't both be right. So if I'm right, that means you're wrong, which is an absolute asinine way of thinking. If you look at everyone like they must be wrong, otherwise it makes you wrong, that's such a, because it blocks you off from learning. You don't learn. And this is what narcissists do. I could do the last conversation I was having with someone. They didn't want to hear a freaking thing that I had to say. They didn't even want to understand it. Just because you understand someone doesn't mean you have to change your mind. You might absolutely understand them. Well, yeah, I don't agree with you. And that's one thing I'll tell you. If you understand what I'm actually saying and disagree, I am totally okay with that. That's absolutely fine. But if you don't understand what I'm saying, and I'm saying A, but you think I'm saying C or D or B or something, and you're disagreeing with that, I'm like, that's not what I'm saying. So people that don't want to hear what you're saying, well, so what you're really saying is this over here, and this, I don't agree with that. Well, you're not actually listening. So put away your disagreements and listen to understand first. And then if you disagree, you would be surprised how many people are like, oh, okay. Well, as long as you see, because when you argue something with someone and it's not what they're saying, they're looking at you like, it's frustrating because dude, that's not even what I'm saying. So what I learned to do right off the bat is the minute people start doing oh, I'm done. You can't even talk to these people because I'm saying A and they're hearing something else. So long story short, what I'm doing is I'm adding things. So here's a good way of saying it. I'm putting the pieces together and building up the puzzle to see the bigger picture. And that is true understanding. When I was a kid, I was somewhat of a child prodigy, and here's what I mean. Every year you have to do this bubble test, then you got to do the English writing part, and etc. And I scored off the charts. Well, this one year I scored so high that the principal called me into the office and yelled at me. He thought I cheated, or he thought I got lucky and didn't take the test seriously. And he's like, do you know how expensive these tests are? Blah, blah. It's it cost the state I think it was $200 or whatever it was. And so they made me take it again, and I scored even higher. And then he called me in, he yelled at me again. He goes, we're going to have to do it all over again. So these tests took I think it was 5 days, 6 hours or something like that. It was ridiculous. And I was like, oh God. And I started crying. I go, I'm doing the best I can. I thought I was flunking out. I thought they were saying you're an idiot. Because they didn't tell me I was scoring through the roof. So then they made me do it again, but they had a lady come in and they put us in a room alone, and she watched, and she actually searched me, make sure I didn't have any notes or any, cheat sheets or anything like that. And it was kind of like I was in jail. I'm like, what's going on? I thought I was being punished. And so I scored even higher, and the principal called me in after they got the test back, and he's like, what? I don't understand. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, are you like making Christmas trees or designs and it just happened to be hitting it right? I'm like, and I burst out crying, I'm doing the best I can. And he was just like, no. He goes, you actually scored through the roof. He goes, we think that you got lucky. And that's what they thought until the third test. So then they brought a lady in from the state to test me on poetry, on this, on that. And I was reading and doing math and I think it was English at a second year college level. Okay. And I think I was in 4th or 5th grade when I was doing this. And so here's my point of this whole thing right here. So she made me take a math test and I went through it, scored through the roof, got everything right. And some of it was geometry, algebra 2, etc. And she goes, how do you know how to do this? And I'm like, well, here's the options. You got A, B, C, or D, and here's the equation. And I realized this has to be this, and I explained why. And she goes, well, no, that's not the way you do it. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, oh, and so she marks it wrong. I go, why is it wrong? I got the right answer. She goes, because you did it wrong. That's not the way you're supposed to do it. So many years later, about 6 or 7 years later, and I think it was 10th grade or maybe 11th grade, I was in, I think it was not trigonometry, but algebra 2. The teacher was explaining the problem and how to do it, and I went up to him after. He was also the football coach, so he knew me, Mr. Boley, and he's a really good guy. And I said, I was taught in I think it was again 4th or 5th grade that you can't do it that way. He goes, what are you talking about? I go, well, the way I did it then was this, and even though I got the answer right, she said I was wrong. He goes, oh, no. He goes, there's different ways to come to the same answer. He goes, that's just one of the patterns. This is a different pattern. So it doesn't mean that if you do something in a different way that you're automatically wrong, because either or right or wrong. There's multiple ways of doing things, like making shoes. I'm sure different companies, different countries make shoes in different ways. It doesn't mean it's wrong, it just means it's different. Sometimes it's better for certain reasons to do things in different ways. Again, just because someone says hola, it doesn't mean they're wrong. It means the same thing in English. Hello. Hola means hello. So in wrestling, boxing, and kickboxing, if someone is doing something effective, I remember, in high school, there was this kid, but he had a lanky body, where most of us were kind of short and stocky, or medium shoulder, medium length arms and legs. So the techniques were taught to us in that way, but he couldn't do it because his arm, there's this one move called the switch move, and he couldn't get his hand underneath the person's thigh when he went to do the shift because his arms were too long and his upper body was too long, etc. And so it wouldn't work, and the coach would yell and scream, and out of frustration, he did it in his own way, and then it worked. And he won. So after the ref raises his hand, the coach pulls him aside and he's pissed off, and I'm looking at the coach like, what's his fucking problem, man? And he goes, that's not the way to go. Come here, get down here. And they got down on the mat off to the side. He goes, you do it like this. Why do you always go against me? Why do you? And me and the other captain go, it worked for him. He won. So then the next coming Monday in practice, when we got back, the coach kind of relented and realized, people have different body types and different strengths. Some people might have really strong biceps, some might have strong back muscles or whatever. He goes, there's different ways for different people. There's not just one way. So that my way or the highway, or I'm right, which means you're wrong, it's either me or you, it's right or wrong, that mentality deletes 99.999% of all the other possibilities. So the other thing I want to add to that is the whole idea of separating things is just, unless you're doing the scientific method, other than that, everything else should be done 1 + 1 = 2. You should start adding things. The real goal is to be able to use both negation and addition, depending on the situation you're in and what you're trying to accomplish. So now, here's how I look at everything, from psychology to hypnosis to NLP to religion to spirituality to energy healing to science, literally to science, to physics, to everything. I do not negate any of them. I use all of them. So instead of separating and dividing, I'm connecting. I literally look for the connections in everything, including music. There's some things that I played guitar for 6 or 7 years, and a couple years later I was learning about physics and vibration and all that stuff. I was like, oh, so you have to have contrast in order for the guitar string to vibrate, to make noise. Noise needs contrast. Flavor if there's no contrast and it's neutral, you won't taste anything. You need contrast for colors. You need contrast for sound. You need contrast for emotions and feelings. So as the phrase goes, it literally is all good. So now I look for the connections in everything. So I don't sit there and say, my religion's right, and if I'm right, you must be wrong, because either I'm right or I don't look at things like that. I'm like, well, why do you believe that? And see, I'll talk to a Muslim, someone who is completely different view, and it turns out I didn't know it, but until a few years ago, what Muslims actually believe in Jesus. He's one of their great teachers, and it turns out Buddhism, Jesus is one of their top 5 greatest teachers ever. So here I am in psychology class learning about the left brain, which is external, the right brain's the internal, and then I go and study Huna, and it's all about the internal spiritual world, the internal, and then I reread my Bible for the 100th time, or I think you get my point, is Jesus says, look within, and I go, oh, okay, that's interesting, whatever, kind of went right over my head, and then I went to temple with my girlfriend who's Buddhist, or my ex-girlfriend, and I start learning about Buddha, and he says to look within. I went, wait a minute, Jesus said that, what's going on here? And so I started seeing the connections. And as I've pointed out in the last couple of videos, a lot of religious people, which is the left brain, is about rules, structure, organization, and religion is about rules, structure, and organization. It is literally an organization. Now, I'm not knocking it. I'm just knocking the idea of this whole... See, the left brain is the either-or negation minus sign brain. So they say, I'm right, you're wrong, to everything. And now they're losing the massive amounts of information, knowledge, and experience that they could be receiving and connecting. They block everything out. And that's what it's like having a conversation with a religious person, regardless of their teaching, is they block it's this way or you're going to hell. And it's like, oh my God. What if I told you that is not the way God meant anything? So before I understood this, I felt like an outcast in church, because I'm adding Mark verse 1 plus Mark verse 2 plus Mark verse 3 plus Mark verse 4 plus and plus and plus, and then going to Luke 1, Luke 2 plus 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 Genesis 1, Genesis 2, and I'm adding this to that, adding, connecting, and it's like literally pieces of a puzzle. You connect Mark 1 verse 1 to Mark 1 verse 2 to Mark 1 verse 3, and you're connecting. Then you connect the Genesis verses and you connect the Revelation, and all of a sudden you're seeing more and more and more of the picture. It gets bigger and bigger, and you have a bigger revelation, you have a bigger understanding and concept of what's really going on. And Jesus says multiple things that he's saying, like, if you don't become like these children, you'll never enter the gates of heaven. That's a right brain way of talking. The right brain is the child brain. It's the brain where you laugh and you have fun, you taste flavors and music and sounds, and you dance. All of that is right brain. The phrase look within literally opens you up to the right brain when you do that. And this is why Jesus was so different from everyone back then. He was adding things together. He was making the connections. He was expressing, like, no, it's not about right or wrong. And that's what they did, the Pharisees and the Sadducees. They were coming from the either or, left or right brain. And everything was wrong if you didn't copy them exactly to the minutia. And they would shame people. They would even kill people because they had a different belief, or they had a different understanding, or they perceived things from a different part of their brain. They would literally kill people to force them to think in terms of either or, right or wrong. This limited mindset. In a million years, I do not think God is this frustrating, angry, hate-filled, judgmental, punishing little children, burning their hands on the stove. That's not God. God is pure love. How you perceive God is literally the perception that you have of God, your belief of what or who God is. What is your concept of God? Do you believe God is the great punisher? Do you believe God is the great shamer? Do you believe God is the great do you believe he's satanic? Like what do you believe God is? I believe God is love, because Jesus says so. Love is the answer. Do you believe that God or the Bible is about right or wrong? Do you believe it's all about shaming and punishing people if you don't fit in the box? I believe God is a great adventure. You know what I really believe God is about? Freedom. Do you know why? Because there's a very big person in the Bible that says the truth shall set you free. And by the way, if you don't know who that is, Jesus said that. The whole purpose of the Bible is for you to expand, to grow. And if one of the core messages is to free you from this demonic narcissist abuse, this slave master mentality that's been on the planet literally since the beginning of time, or at the very least since Adam and Eve ate of the forbidden fruit, or however you want to say it. So my overall message in this video is, I don't believe that hola is bad or wrong. And I also don't believe hello is the only way you can greet someone. I love different cultures. I love Italian. I love Chinese. I love different flavors. I love the Latin foods. I love the Mexican foods. I love the spices. I love the flavorfulness. I love Thai food. I love different beliefs, different cultures. It makes life an amazing, it's non-stop experiential existence that you can have forever. I love the fact that I can drive 2 cities over and experience a completely different culture. I love the fact that I can drive to the country and experience a different energy, a different way of being. I love the fact that I can drive to the beach and experience something completely radically different than the country. Do you know what I love? I love people. I love it when I can meet someone from Thailand and just fall in love with the way they talk, with the way they make their food, with the way they talk about their spirituality. Like, one thing I love about Buddhism, there's no right or wrong. It's very right brain. It's just a fully accepting religion. It's not about, well, and here, I'll give you an example. One of the things my girlfriend and her friends had told me right off the bat is like, oh, well, we don't go to temple. I'm like, why? It's like, well, we don't believe that you have to go to temple. Even if you only go once a year, you're Buddhist. I'm like, what? Because in Christianity, if you don't go every Sunday, you're going to hell. You're a sinner. In other words, what they said is there's no judgment. So if you just show up randomly one day to talk to a monk during the week, or outside of the, when everyone gathers together on the weekend for temple, he's not going to be mad and go, who are you? I've never seen you. He doesn't care. There's no judgment. They don't care. It's just opening and receiving. They just want to help you. And it's not like because you're not a Jewish person and you're living out in the country that you're not allowed to worship on the mount which you used to be able to worship on. Remember the woman Jesus went and spoke to out when she was getting water from the well? And she goes, well, where do we worship? Where can we go? And she's crying. He goes, anywhere. Right here, over there. He goes, it's not going to be like there's this one building, this synagogue, or this one mountain where you can worship at. He goes, you can worship from your heart. So it's not like you're not allowed. So if you're not one of us, you're not allowed to worship at this mountain or worship in this tent. It's like all that whole idea of either or, limitation, like you're only inclusive if you have a certain look or a certain belief or a certain, like that's just horrible. I love listening to people. Even if they talk about the Bible, it's like, I want to hear another perspective. I want to understand this. Now, the minute they start stepping over their line and trying to control me and you must believe this, either or, you're going to hell. Well, that's when I'm like, I'm out of here. So I really genuinely don't care what your religion is. If it's a religion I haven't really learned much about, I would probably really love to hear, like, well, why do you believe that? Like, what's going on over here? Like this, because you know what it is? People genuinely fascinate me. Different cultures genuinely fascinate me. And it's just like sports. If it works for you, do it. That's my perspective. If this religion, if this wrestling technique, if this kickboxing technique, if this works for you, go right on ahead. I support you 100%. I want to see, hear, feel, and experience the fullness of God. Not the limitation of God, not the smallness of God. I want to see the great expanse. Do not try to tell me or convince me that in a circle there's only one perspective. There's 360 degrees of perspective in just that one plane of circle. Then you can go from top to bottom, making a circle that goes around from up and down, and then at different there's a multitude of perspectives on everything. And I want to see them from as many perspectives as possible. I want to understand, I want to perceive, I want to experience life, God, food, culture from different perspectives. It keeps life fascinating and fun, and it's a very empowering way to go through life. Now, do you have to do this? Absolutely not, and that's absolutely okay. If you are stuck in any area of your life, it's because life has changed, you've changed, things have shifted, and you are stuck in that one perspective that is not helping you to expand. All you need to do is shift to a couple different perspectives and see it in a different light, and now it's like taking off the brakes, and now you can flow into life, achieving your dreams and experiencing life in the way that you want to experience it. Hey, God bless you guys. If you like this video, click subscribe, click the like button, and please go ahead and make a comment, and if you'd like, make a donation. There's a PayPal link right there in the description box. God bless you guys. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.